Welcome to Storycaster. I am going to play the game solo today and show you what it's like to create an entire world by yourself. How Solocaster or how Storycaster is played solo is slightly different than being with a group because well, the only thing that's really different is A, how you play it, but also you can do one important thing that you don't normally do when you have a group of people, and that's you can refine, you can go backwards in your worksheet, and I'll show you how to do that. As long as, we're going to be coming up with details, we're going to be moving forward in the story, but sometimes your story becomes more and more clear as you go along, which is totally normal. And it becomes so clear that some of the details that you took to get there are no longer applicable and you want to change them. And that's completely fine in a solo game. It's fine in a group game as long as you have people that you are you know, it doesn't matter. Um, anyway, let's get started. So I wanted to put together a Sherlock Holmes kind of like an interesting matchup between Sherlock Holmes, Harry Potter, H.G. Wells' Time Machine, and even a little Cthulhu in there. I thought that this could be a really cool setting to play with, and I really want to show you guys how the whole, like what it's like to build an entire world and then explore that world as a player and as a DM, you can explore the world and really build like character classes, adventures, magic items. I mean, I'm doing things like making the recipes, from these settings. It's down to the smallest detail. So if you're a world builder, there isn't a better tool than this. You can build whatever world really you think of, and and explore it really within, well, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to build it, then I'm going to publish it. I'll show you what it's like as a player, and then I'm going to show you in the last part how Engine works. Engine is like the DM version of looking at our games. All right, let's just jump in and start playing. So I'm going to choose the Supernatural deck. Um, I could have gone fantasy, but I really am shooting for a like an alternate Sherlock Holmes type thing, and I think that the Supernatural deck is going to be the most appropriate deck. So I'm going to draw four cards. Bloop, 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 bloop. Yeah, these are all good cards. Since I want to make like my idea is having this kind of this Sherlock Holmes uh, like university. I want to call it Sherlock Holmes the Academy for Detectives. And so I'm going to choose this location. This is the Sherlock Holmes Academy for Detectives. It's in London, 1883. Um, so I'm going to come up with three details about our location. I can throw out these cards because I'm not going to use them. Bloop, bloop. So three details about our location. So this is the Sherlock Holmes Academy for Detectives. I like this. So in this version of Sherlock Holmes, it's London, 1883, but something odd has happened. And what I mean odd is that Sherlock Holmes himself noticed that his own timeline is slightly off. What I mean by that is that I told you I wanted to do an H.G. Wells matchup here. So I'm going to go on the premise that H.G. Wells' Time Machine was built in the Victorian age, so the same age as Sherlock Holmes, and it's during this time. And it screwed up the timeline of the natural order of things slightly. And Sherlock Holmes is so brilliant. In his younger years, he discovers that there are some things off with the timeline, and there's some things off in his own, like in his own life. And in fact, he knows that he's probably supposed to be an investigator, but in this particular case, because his investigation, what he's still, this is another detail. His investigation is so important. He makes a school around it. He makes an actual school, and he's the headmaster, and um, he's going to be teaching different types of investigators, different skills, and what they're looking for are things with a timeline that are incorrect. We'll figure out what that is going along. That's how Storycaster works. Let's see, what's the third detail? The third detail about London 1883 um, is there is a group of people that also are aware that the timeline is incorrect, and they are actively trying to keep it that way. I think that a lot of this story, so I think that a lot of the stories are going to be like Sherlock Holmes going, "Hey, the time machine never was supposed to be built." And it's built, and he figures out that it's built sometime in this era, and there are people who are actively making sure that the time machine does get built. And he's trying to figure out it. So in fact, Sherlock Holmes has been studying these people have existed for thousands of years, and they've been actively trying to make sure that in this time period, in the Victorian time period, the this time machine gets built and purposely screws up the timeline. Yeah, I like that a lot. So this next game we're going to play is called Zones. How Zones works is we're going to choose some cards, and the first cards are going to be structure cards, and we're going to describe a very small scene. And from that scene, each of those scenes, I'm going to zoom out a bit and describe this area that's related to our school in some way. Um, so let me draw some zone cards, or these are structures. Ooh. So let me use this. This scene is there is a doorway, um, and this doorway is unusual because it clearly looks Egyptian. It has Egyptian hieroglyphics in it, and it's been moved from Egypt. It is inside uh, the school for detectives, or the Academy for Detectives, Sherlock Holmes Academy for Detectives. When you zoom out a bit from this, there are diagrams and drawings. It's a large diorama. So this is actually a garden. At the center of the garden, there's this archway that has this hieroglyphic this hieroglyphic archway. But outside from the garden, there are all of these diagrams and models that have been, cut into a garden. This is like a garden for either a madman or a genius. Um, and this is, what should we call this garden? This garden's in the complex of the detectives. Uh, oh, I forgot to mention, it's probably a good idea that you have a bunch of names before you go into this. That's always good for a Storycaster session, so that you don't like do what I'm doing. Like, it's just like, what's the name? So just, look at something that really um, inspires you, and let's go with it. I'm gonna call this the uh, The Garden of Trespasses. The Garden of Trespasses. Okay. Now we have a zone. Let's make another zone. Now, if you've seen a Storycaster session, you played one, you know that everyone gets a chance to do this. But since this is a solo play, you could do this between 1 and 4 times. I'm going to do it twice. What I'm going to do for my next zone is I'm going to draw 4 location cards. And I'm going to start really big and then zoom in from there and come up with another location. So let's draw 4 location cards. Interesting. So I like this one. There is a big train station, King's Cross, in London. Uh, and you can see that there are trains. This is a main hub of transportation. When you zoom in a bit, uh, you can see that there is this modified, really fancy car. This is Sherlock Holmes' uh, personal train, where they will travel all over England to travel in. This is kind of like a steampunky sort of locomotive. This locomotive really, it's its own personal car. This car has to have a cool name. Um, I'm going to call this car the Red Cylinder. The Red Cylinder is the Sherlock Holmes uh, locomotive for the school. All right, that was cool. Now, if we wanted, we could repeat that process and we could make more zones, but I'm real happy with our zones. Um, and so we know that we have the Red Cylinder and we have the Garden of Trespasses. Um, the next game we're going to play is called Structure. And how Structure works is I'm going to draw I'm going to draw 8 structure cards. Because I'm going to choose 4, and each structure I'm going to give how many is that? That's 7. Each structure, I'm going to choose 4 of these. I'm going to give it a name and how it's related to our setting and, a detail about it. Um, hmm, okay. So this is the window in uh, this is the Codex library. There's the Codex library or the library Codex. Codices? No. I like the Codex Library. The Codex Library is on the campus of Sherlock Holmes. It has some of um, the most gathered books of knowledge that's not in a public library in the world. And this is where many of the students of the school will study. Um, there are a lot of ancient cool texts around here that no one's ever seen, and a lot of the whole where the timeline where Sherlock Holmes has personally designed where he knows that the timeline is slightly off. The Codex Library. That's cool. Um, that's another one. We got to do 4. That's another. Oh, let's do the dorms. This is the dorms of the detectives. Um, the detectives are students, they're young people that are chosen. Essentially, I think what happens is that Sherlock Holmes himself studies people from all over the world for different traits that they have, and then he sends out Watson to go collect them, to say, you're in Sherlock Holmes School of Detectives, and essentially no one in the outside knows what happens in this school, but everyone on the inside knows that they're studying where the timeline has gone wrong and trying to stop those who are trying to purposely screw up the timeline. Um, this is the dorm room. So um, what's special about the dorm room? So the dorm room has four different four different areas that break off from it. We'll do it, like a kind of a Harry Potter type thing. But there's this common room, which is what this image is from, which is known as, let's see, what should we call this? We're going to call this Roompa Loompa. And Roompa Loompa, its cute name, um, Oompa Loompa. Its cute name comes from the uh, people being inspired by a famous chocolatier. Um, Roompa Loompa has a billiards room. It's what every gentleman wants in a 19 in 1883. And it has its own butler who runs the Roompa Loompa. Roompa Loompa may be not a terribly serious name since this is such a serious setting, but we're going with it. And again, like I said, we can change things if we want. So, but I like what we're doing so far. We have the Codex Library, Roompa Loompa. Um, this is the Sanctum of Sherlock Holmes. Sanctum of Sherlock Holmes. So, not many people know this. Sherlock Holmes himself has this is a vault room, and the vault has been built by Sherlock Holmes himself. It is essentially impossible to get in because it's so brilliantly built. But inside the vault of Sherlock Holmes, um, yeah, we'll call this the vault of Sherlock Holmes. He has some treasures in here that he absolutely should not have. One of them being, um, he has a piece of the original time machine, and it was found in an Egyptian tomb, and it's like 5,000 years old. This is his first clue that something with the timeline is very wrong because he found a piece of something from this era, like a key, a metal key of some kind, that has a stamp in it, that has essentially London, like 1887 or something like that, like stamped in the actual key, except for it was found in a tomb and it's thousands of years old. Um, this is the sanctum of Sherlock Holmes, and it has items that he's been studying, that he knows that the timeline is truly off. Um, all right, one more. What else do we have? This is the conservatory. The conservatory is a place where this is kind of the commons where people hang out, and there is an overgrown garden here. This was part of the original building. This structure is not a new structure. What Sherlock Holmes purchased to be the school. It's an old, like a 16th century type castle, and it has some ruins of the old, um, of what the building once was. And so not all of this, a lot of the grounds are old. And the conservatory is one of those places that has not been fixed up. It's still like a 16th century um, uh, area. And this area is used for the students who are doing experiments. So these students are not only using, their brains, but, they also are creating experiments, bombs and shit like that, that, uh, they're using in their adventures. And that is the conservatory. Okay. Oh, this next game we're gonna play is called Settings. How Settings works is we're gonna leave our structure cards up there. So we have the conservatory, we've got the Sanctum of Sherlock Holmes, we have the Roompa Loompa, and we have the Codex Library. So this next thing is pretty wild how it works. So we're gonna draw 8 tidbit cards and come up with an unusual detail about each of the rooms. Now, the thing that's cool about this, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the thing that's cool about this is I do not need to know the answer to these questions that we're going to have. I'm going to write down the questions and then I'm going to answer them. So I'll show you what I mean. For example, in the Codex Library, there is there's a mummy from the ancient Egypt in the Codex Library. So I'm just going to say in the Codex Library, there is a mummy. And eventually, after we're done with this, the question is why? Why is there a mummy in the Codex Library? I don't need to know the answer to that yet. Let me finish. I'm going to do all 4 questions here. So in Roompa Loompa, it could be kind of funny. There's a TV set. I don't know if I want to introduce anything from the future. You know what? I am. There is a device in Roompa Loompa that clearly has some really strange properties. It's not a TV, what we know it as. It's like a steampunk version of a TV. And so my question is, in Roompa Loompa, there is a unusual glowing device. Why? All right. In the Codex, or excuse me, this is the Sanctum of Sherlock Holmes. Let's put something else fun. Oh, this makes sense. Um, there is a very unusual key in the Sanctum of Sherlock Holmes. An unusual key. Why? And lastly, in the conservatory, there are bottles of, it's not electricity. It is bottles of some kind of energy that is being kept here. This is clearly some kind of storage facility, the conservatory. So the conservatory is filled with storage of strange substance. Why? Okay, you can discard these. Now, for setting, I'm going to answer why. So the Codex Library says that in the Codex Library, there is a An Egyptian mummy in the library. Why? Uh, this whole Sherlock Holmes understanding the timeline being off started in Egypt. In Egypt, obviously, as I mentioned before, there was a piece of the time machine that was found, and it's thousands of years old. And Sherlock Holmes found it, or someone found it in a tomb. And so Sherlock Holmes often goes down to Egypt to try to understand this mystery. What's interesting about this mummy in particular, this mummy is not entirely human. Um, and if you examine this mummy, um, there is a big, like, Sherlock Holmes knows how they did mummification process. And so if you would look at this, you'd think, that I don't totally know how they did the mummies. I think they sucked brains out your nose or shit like that. I don't know. But in the back of the skull of this particular mummy is totally missing. Like there is a hole back there. Um, and yeah, that's why that there's a mummy in here, is that this mummy is from ancient Egypt, but it's also quite special because it's not totally human. Neat. Okay, what's our next one? Our next one is Roompa Loompa. There is an unusual device. Okay, so why is there an unusual device in Roompa Loompa that is a glowing device? There are the same beings that have been manipulating or trying to make sure that the time machine does get built. There's not a lot of them. We'll come up with a name for them here soon. But there's not a lot of them. And how they are moving the timeline to their own purposes is that there are devices that this group of beings, these non-humans, have been using to manipulate situations. Essentially, they're trying to make sure that, for thousands of years, they've been trying to make sure that the time machine does get built. And so they have devices, essentially. So this is, the world of Sherlock Holmes, but there are things that are akin to magic items, essentially items that don't work exactly like the properties of total physics. They're extremely rare. And Sherlock Holmes has been, scouring the planet for them. Every one of them is because these beings have used them in some way. This glowing device is one of these things. This glowing device is uh, it seems to put off light, and they use it as a light, but it's not heat light and it's not a flame. It is some probably that same substance. We'll talk about it here in a second. That it's a substance that these beings are using that manipulate time. Okay. Um, there's an unusual key in Sherlock Holmes' sanctum. Why is there an unusual key there? That's a good question. I think that so the detectives, will be, players and things like that, they don't know as much as Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes, I think, knows much more of this mystery. And I think, yeah, that's it. This is the key that actually starts the time machine. This very unusual key. He has it from the ancient one. the one that was thousands of years ago. And he's actually the way that he'll know that he's found the the actual time machine is he'll be able to compare the ancient key, the one that's been aged for thousands of years, and the one from this time, which are actually the same key. Um, and he's going to try to find out, like where's this key? And if he finds this one, then he's found the time machine, and then he can stop the time machine forever being invented, and correct the timeline. Um, I like that a lot. I think that's super cool. So he's this key is like the most valuable thing that that Sherlock Holmes has. Um, okay. There is in the conservatory, there is this canister of these glowing lights. Why? What is that stuff? I think that yeah, I like this. Okay. I think that this stuff is this glowing stuff is like bioluminescence, and it's filled in seawater, um, but it's alive and it communicates in some way. So this glowing energy stuff that I'm talking about is from the sea, and uh, and it puts off signals and it puts off lights. It's bioluminescence, but with purpose. And uh, Sherlock Holmes has been collecting this stuff for, and storing it for a long time because I think he's probably trying to decipher some kind of messages in it. Um, so that, yeah, the reason why the conservatory has a bunch of canisters with glowing light is because it's like a giant aquarium where where the where Sherlock Holmes and those who can understand the patterns in these lights can go see, um, you know, they can read something uh, in this grand um, puzzle. Okay, that was wild. Those are my structures and my setting. I like that. So we have the Codex library with the mummy who's not totally human. We have Roompa Loompa that has a an aquarium now. So this is what I mean is that now that things make more sense, you can go back and change it to make it work a little bit better. So there's an aquarium inside Roompa Loompa that has these bioluminescent like jellyfish things that are blinking lights in unusual patterns. We have the sanctum of Sherlock Holmes, the vault. It has the most valuable possession that he has, which is the key that starts the time machine. And his is from the past. His is thousands of years old. And he's looking for the one, this same key, but in this timeline where it's brand new. And lastly, we have the conservatory. The conservatory has a bunch of this bioluminescent life in it that is, blinking out patterns. Um, and they go and read it, those who can understand it. I don't totally know what that is yet, but we'll find out as we play the game. All right, we're gonna come up with factions. I'm gonna draw 8 factions. I will use 4 of them. I'm using the supernatural deck, so there's some super creepy stuff. Look at that. That might not. Well, let's see. That actually may really work for us. I don't know. God, that's kind of cool. Well, I do want to create the non-human things. Uh, I don't want them to look like this. And that's the thing about Storycaster. Don't let the cards get in your way. If you have an idea, you can play the cards. They're just meant to be inspirations. That's all that they're meant. The story is the important part. For example, I'm going to play this card. These are the z- the Zoid, the Zoid, Zoid, Zoid. I think that the Zoyod, I like better. The Zoyod. The Zoyod are the Zoyod are a really interesting race. They are a cephalopods, so octopi, but they were octopi of the ancient world. So like during the time of dinosaurs, they were intelligent. They were quite intelligent. But just like most things, they were destroyed in, the great cataclysm that killed all the dinosaurs. Um, in this particular timeline, the time machine was used. It went back in time and uh, some Zoids, very like maybe nine Zoids, used the time machine and escaped their extinction, and they are intelligent. They just, during the time of dinosaurs, they didn't need, like that type of intelligence. They didn't need the type of intelligence of man, but they jump forward in time and realized that the only thing that kept them from extinction is the time machine. And so they must have the time machine must be built. Um, and the Zoid are the Zoid. Zoid? Zoid. I don't know. Zoid. I'm going to spell it Zoyid. Zoid. The Zoid are they can hook onto life forms, humans, and essentially open up their brains and like puppet them, really. And this is how they live. The Zoid are essentially parasites that live on other life. And since there's nine of them, this is how they've continued life. So the Zoids are not uh, I don't know if they're breeding or anything. I think that there's just very few of them, um, and they live as a parasitic creature on humanity. And so a lot of the life on for thousands of years, some generals like maybe Kubla Khan or something was actually a Zoid. Um, and they are doing things. And since the Zoid have become super intelligent, they've been around now for thousands and thousands of years. Um, they uh, they're the ones who have kind of mastered, they're the ones who have made that, these interesting items that can affect fate a bit, almost like magic items. I don't think it's magic. I don't know what it is yet. But let's just go with it. The Zoid. I like that faction a lot. Uh, so what I want to do is I want to, because I want to play this, like I want to go to school in this game, because this will be a full-on MMO when we're done. Um, I want to make this a group of students. Like I want the students in the school to be broken into groups. These are the sharps. Um, you guys ever heard of a card sharp? A card sharp is someone who knows the game very, very well, but they cheat. A sharp is a type of student who is I kind of want to make this school like, oh, there's the people who know knowledge, the people who do disguises, the people who do the mysteries, and the people who are the smooth criminals. The sharps are the smooth criminals. Like all the different facets of Sherlock Holmes, how he's mastered all different types of being an investigator. I want in this school those to be different classes essentially. Um, so these are the sharps. A sharp is uh, a gentleman. It'd be 1883, and they are investigators. They're not the brains. They're all smart, but these guys are the faces, and they are can get into places. These guys they have charisma as their main skill is charisma. Those are the sharps. Uh, who else do we have? Oh, let's do the Codex. The Codex are another group, a faction in the school. These guys purely know knowledge. These are the brains. The Codex is the guys who know, like, if you need to answer a question, you ask the Codex. They are the smartest group of this whole school. Who else? What else do we want? Uh, these are the ciphers. The ciphers are another uh, group who they're the ones who can really track the the Zoid, the path of the Zoid, so throughout history, and they can see that essentially when real things happened or timeline has been manipulated because the Zoids have thrown their lot in it. Essentially anything that the Zoids touch that alters the timeline because the Zoids are not supposed to be alive. They were supposed to die in the extinction of with the dinosaurs, and they did not. Or nine did not. Um, and so uh, yeah, ciphers are the guys they actually know how to use some of these items that have been left behind. We should call those things something. Let's call them relics. Um, so a relic is a device that's been altered by the Zoids. And they can do things like magic items can do things. These guys study the effects of these things, and I think ciphers have even built their own versions of these. And I think remember how we were talking about Sherlock Holmes' train? That train is essentially a relic. It's not, but it hasn't been built by the Zoids. It's been built by the ciphers who have studied relics, and then they built, items themselves. Yeah, super cool. All right, the Zoids, the Sharps, the Codex, and the ciphers. Very, very cool. I like that. I may add another one when I'm building this because I like that whole Harry Potter thing where you've got four houses. Um, but we'll see. You'll be able to play the game, so you know we'll do it when the time comes. All right, let's go to a person. I'm gonna draw 8, choose 4. Look how cool some of these are. I love this card. I want to make this a Zoid. Um, her code name is Mary Magdalene, um, or maybe Magdalene. Mary Magdalene is an example of a Zoid. Um, and uh, they simply know her as they'll call her Mary. Now, of course, like I said, the Zoids, since they're a parasitic creature, they themselves are immortal, but the bodies that they inhabit, they are mortal. And so when they die, these things need to go live on some other creature. And so, most of the time throughout history, you don't know who these people are. But Sherlock Holmes has figured out that some people um, have been famous people. Maybe, like Wilkes Booth or something like that, may have been a Zoid under the influence, or a human who was influenced by Zoid, something like that. And Sherlock Holmes knows, you know, when, when those kinds of monumental, huge things in history, were affected by the Zoids. What's special about Mary? Um, Mary is, um, this is kind of Sherlock Holmes Moriarty. This is the Mary knows about Sherlock Holmes and knows that Sherlock Holmes is um, trying to stop them from building the time machine. Oh, I need to come up with that guy. Yeah, let's do that next. This is the Traveler. So we have Mary. We'll just call her Mary. She's been Bloody Mary, Mary Magdalene. Uh, she's essentially carried that name over and over. One other thing that I think is really cool about this particular Zoid, it prefers women and it takes over like powerful women over and over and over. Each Zoid has their own personality and they've been around for thousands of years. And so they've become very, very quirky. Um, Anyway, the Traveler. The Traveler is the guy who builds the time machine. Now, this is essentially H.G. Wells' story. There is a scientist who, in H.G. Wells' time machine, there's a guy who I think his fiance dies and he tries to save her, and he builds this time machine to go save her, and it goes all haywire. We're going to use that same sort of idea here. And in this particular case, this guy builds this time machine, but it goes back in time. Um, and I think that, the Traveler himself is not really that important because he probably dies, or maybe even the Zoid kill him in like the ancient past, like the dinosaur past. Um, yeah, but the machine, they jump it to, like past the Ice Age. And the machine gets destroyed by early man. I think that maybe they even, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's do this. So the Zoids are all pharaohs. So all 9 of them are these ancient, super powerful pharaohs. The pharaohs get, really powerful, but man destroys the time machine like men do. And the pharaohs are like, oh man, that was that thing, and they don't know how it works. They don't know how to build it, even though they have incredible powers themselves. The Zoids, they can't build a time machine. They need man to do it. And so they are always trying to manipulate people to make sure that everything's in place so that the Traveler builds the time machine and goes back to the ancient times. That's like imperative. That is the only thing the Zoids must do. And what's cool about our story is that happens in our time period that we're playing in, and Sherlock Holmes knows it. Okay, Traveler, super cool. God, it's kind of fun to make the Zoids. Um, I want to make another one. I just have to. This is the monster. The monster is a he's the Jack the Ripper type creature. The monster is responsible for some serious crimes, whereas Mary, she might be like kind of the brains behind it. The monster is like loathes humanity, um, and he's responsible for horrible, heinous crimes. Um, the monster is something that, Sherlock Holmes has been after the monster many times. I think that Jack the Ripper was the monster. I think that's a really cool one. He is just plain malicious. He doesn't need to be, but he loathes humanity. The monster. All right, one more. Well, we already have. I want Watson, to be a character. I want, Scotland Yard. I want all the Sherlock Holmes stuff that we know to be in there. So I don't really need to play any cards. Um, do I could make the commissioner of is it the commissioner? No, the whoever runs Scotland Yard, an investigator. That could be kind of fun. Oh, no, 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 no. I want to do a student, or maybe a professor. Uh, I'm going to do a professor. This is who is she? Uh, this is Professor Auxiliadoria. Auxiliadoria. Um, Auxiliadoria. Professor Auxiliadoria is a professor of ciphers. She is she's the one who has really sort of uh, mastered a lot of these items that the Zoids have left behind. She has many of these items, and like I said, these items are they have some power to them, and they're from all over the world, from all over many different cultures. The Zoids, even though there's only 9 of them, they've been very busy uh, traveling the world to make sure that all of the cards line up uh, so that the traveler can make the time machine. I think what's also kind of cool about the time machine is that it's made of materials and stuff like that that shouldn't be around in 1899. It's essentially the time machine itself is a screw up in the timeline that Sherlock Holmes is trying to fix. There's like there's a bunch of stuff from there's crystal from Central America that just normally wouldn't have been found in London 1883. But in this particular case, because the Zoids have manipulated it, they made sure that the traveler has access to a whole bunch of weird stuff throughout his whole life so that he can figure out how to build the time machine. Professor Auxiliadoria, she is uh, she is a master of ciphers, and she's a master of uh, kind of understanding how relics work. All right. Those are our people. Very cool. Next game we're going to play is called Tidbits. Tidbits is pretty much anything we want to add in this particular setting. I'm going to draw 8 of them and play 4. I'm going to give a detail. Funsies. Wish I could ask you guys. because I'm used to playing this so often with people, and it's fun to bounce ideas off people. I do like playing it solo too, because when you play it solo, you can bring your whole world to life here. If you've got a setting that you want to build, or a book or whatever, you can completely bring it to life in Storycaster. You can explore it as a player, and you can explore it, as the author, and you can ask it questions. Like, I'm going to have so much fun, exploring this world, and it's going to be cool because, you guys saw it being created. Um, Anyway, let's give a tidbit. Uh, so this first tidbit is, um, what do we want to call this? This is the glamour. Uh, the glamour is a marker where the uh, where the Zoids will meet. The Zoids. Um, Yeah, the Zoids, since there's only 9 of them and they're doing things all over the world, they rarely meet. But they do have a time when they will come together. And they will discuss their plans for the years. What's interesting is that, these guys they're so long lived, they will come together. Sometimes they'll be like once every 50 years or something like that. But they don't really want to stay together, of course, because they could be destroyed. They are just squids that are like implanted on the back of somebody's head anyway. And so it's dangerous for all of them to be in one place because they could be destroyed that way. Um, but they have to they have to meet and discuss what needs to happen, in this next part of the timeline, for the best odds that the traveler will put together uh, the timeline. Of course, they're meeting at the Glamour in our particular time that we're going to be playing, and Sherlock Holmes is going to find that out, knowing that the Zoids could actually be destroyed there. And what's also cool, I think, about that is that Mary knows that they're vulnerable. And so there's a cool story there. The meeting at the Glamour, meeting uh, at the Glamour. That's cool. What's another detail about this story? Uh, I really was hoping that I love these relics so much. I was hoping that I would. Well, let's use this. Speaking of a relic, um, this is the what is this? This is the mirror. Um, no, this is the through the looking glass. The through the looking glass. This is an interesting object because in the reflection of the looking glass, um, Sherlock Holmes can see evidence of the Zoids. So when he's investigating crimes, he actually has this mirror that he will look at. The Zoids loathe this relic. They hate the looking glass because it actually can identify them, and it can identify some of their works. And this also gives Sherlock Holmes and players who are playing in this game the clues that this has been an event that's been manipulated by the Zoid. Um, yeah, so maybe actually all students actually have they have a relic that's called the looking glass. It is a mirror where you can see evidence, like, so normally you can't see things, but you look through it and you can see there's like glowing things around, and you know that the Zoids were there. Um, yeah, okay. That's an interesting one. like this. I don't really know what this is, but we're just going to give it a shot. This is the dining hall. Yeah. Um, the dining hall of the Sherlock Holmes Academy for Detectives. Um, this is where the outside world, this is the only place where the outside world will kind of mix with this school. This school, it's important to know that, the school is everything that happens in the walls of school is total secrecy. Everyone wants to know, on the outside. There's reporters that are constantly doing, these stories on what's happening, in this in Sherlock Holmes School for Detectives, because there's so much mystery around it. But this is the one place in the dining hall where the public will be able to meet with, people like Sherlock Holmes and the investigators. So anytime there's a press release, it's done in the, we'll call this the Great Hall. It doesn't need to be the dining hall, in the Great Hall. The Great Hall is where press releases happen. I don't want to give, like, there needs to be a, should Watson be the HR guy for the school? I kind of want to make I want to make someone. In fact, I wish I had a card that, like I said, let's not get hung up on the cards representing, exactly what they want to be. In fact, I'm going to use this as a person. This person, this guy needs to have a great name. What should we call? I want this to be our HR guy who does the press releases um, for the school. This is Balustrades. Balustrades, yeah, Balustrades. Balustrades is he's the administrator of the school, and he is the voice of it. He is an old, very snobby kind of dude who gives all of the uh, is the connection between the school and the public. But, the school is funded much by, London. And so they want to make sure that they're getting, their money's worth. But oftentimes, there's just so much secrecy behind this. So Balustrades is the guy who's the voice for the school. All right. We have come up with a lot of fun things about this. Let's do a story seed. So a story seed is it's a little bit different. How story seed works. Let me draw the cards out and show you. So there's a lot of cool things that this setting has a lot of really cool action in it. And so when we are making little stories, these would be considered plots. So when you are playing the game, there are plots that are happening. I'm going to choose some, like, let's say I would choose a person, Mary, a faction, the Zoids, and a place, the conservatory. And I'm going to tell a brief little story in our setting, and it doesn't need to be like a complete what happened. It just needs to have these four elements, which is, where does this story take place? Who are the important people? What happened? Let's put that one third. So what happened is essentially, what's the impetus of the story? And lastly, what's the dramatic question? The dramatic question is kind of the unspoken question that moves the story forward. So in Star Wars, it's will Luke defeat Vader? In Harry Potter, it's will Harry defeat Voldemort? Or Lord of the Rings is will Frodo destroy the ring? These are not directly spoken, but it's clearly this is what's happening in the story. With those four things, these are the four pillars of a story seed. That's all we need to be able to have, really go on adventures. And if you have seen a Storycaster game, you know that we do, every player gets a chance to tell their own story, and it's a collaborative storytelling. In this particular case, since there's no other players, I'm only going to do one of these to show you how to do it. Um, but when you play the game, you'll see that there's a lot of different plots going on. This, what we're about to talk about, will be one of them. I am going to choose Mary. In fact, all of those things that I just said, I really liked because I like the fact that the conservatory is holding that. I want to come up with a cool name for those lights. I don't have it yet. It's the bioluminescence. Essentially, what I wanted is that this is the Zoids' natural habitat. They are building their original habitat, which was before the meteor struck the Earth and killed the dinosaurs. And so when they're not um, when they're not inhabiting people like sucked onto their brains, they live in water. And they live uh, in this place where there are these bioluminescent lights that are flashing. And it's in these lights that are flashing that how they communicate with one another. That's why the fact that Sherlock Holmes has some of them, really bothers Mary. I'm also going to say that, remember how I was talking about the Glamour? The Glamour is that place where they meet. The Glamour is underwater. It's a place underwater where it has these bioluminescent electrical, like flashing lights. Um, it's those flashing lights that the Zoids can communicate with one another. And another thing that's interesting about them is, so normally they cannot communicate, because they're spread too great a distance. But if they're around these lights, it's almost like a phone call between some of them. So they're using these things as ways of communicating with one another. Mary hates that Sherlock Holmes has some of this, and so this is going to be fun. I really like where we're going with this. So Mary, she always inhabits like this woman, and she's probably, in this particular instance, Mary is Moriarty. And Moriarty is this absolute, it's the nemesis of Sherlock Holmes. So in Mary's form right now, she is Moriarty. Um, and the monster, so these things don't necessarily need to inhabit, um, they don't need to inhabit just human life. They can take over any kind of thing, that has a brain. And so Moriarty has a wolf. This is very Hound of Baskervilles type thing. A giant wolf that has this squid thing, and that's the monster. Um, and she is going to raid the school in an attempt to destroy the conservatory. So the where is the conservatory. The who is um, the students at the school. Mary and the monster, who's in wolf form. So he's almost like a werewolf in this particular case, which is super cool. And Moriarty is this, kind of this brilliant character who knows where, things are happening. The what happened is that uh Sherlock Holmes and group discovered the glamour. They took the glowing substance, and they've stored it in the conservatory, so they actually could tap in the calls of the Zoids. And the dramatic question is will Moriarty destroy Oh, we're going to call it glamour. Of course we are. So that the lights that lights is called glamour. And that's the stuff that is it's like this magical lights type substance that the Zoids use to communicate. It's like looking at their brain pattern essentially, but it's external and it's called glamour. Yes, I love that. Okay, so glamour. Um, Oh, we're going to totally use that. Like the relics are going to be powered with glamour. It's going to be like this kind of magical gasoline in some ways in this setting. All right, cool. Anyway, so the Mary's going to try to destroy the glamour, and the question is will she destroy it, or will the Zoids be defeated? And then Sherlock actually has access to a bunch of this magical fuel that the Zoids use. All right. So I am going to build this now. I'm going to take a quick break. Now it won't be a break for you. It'll just go directly into the video, but I'm going to take all of these notes that we just had and I'll compile it and make it into a game that we can completely explore. We'll play it as players in the next phase, but then we'll be able to explore this whole setting as a world builder. Okay, so now we're back. The whole Sherlock Holmes Academy for Detectives has been built. It is ready to play. This first part, we're going to actually play it like an MMO. We can create characters. We can create characters for any system. I wanted to build this kind of like a wizard school that you could attend classes and things like that. And then the second half, I'll show you what it's like as a DM, how to create adventures in this using Engine and looking for classes, magic items, scenarios, you name it. So essentially, like you can just build a world and then you can ask that world any kind of question and get, build essentially the entire source book. It's pretty powerful. Let's just jump right in. So let's click the game overview and get a uh, see what's happening. So it's connecting the Storycaster server and it's building our story. Oh, you need to see this a little bit better. Let's zoom in. Let's turn that off. That's a little too big. Okay. So in the heart of Victorian London, where the shroud fogs the cobblestone streets, the air buzzes with the promise. I won't read the whole thing to you, but here we have the Sherlock Holmes Academy for Detectives, born from the brilliant mind of Sherlock Holmes, Dr. John Watson. This is just going to give us a complete overview of the whole world that we just made. This has got the houses, so this is a codex, a cipher. Oh, I need to spell that correctly. I don't know. I kind of like it with an S. Cipher is not with an S, but I think I'm just going to leave it. We'll leave Cipher with an S. Um, a rake. So I changed this when I was building this, by the way, I wanted it to be 4 houses. And so I made the rakes. So let's see the rakes with their charisma and adeptness in navigating. They kind of were I made the rakes like the sharps, and then I made the sharp more like a thief. So the 4 classes or the 4 houses in this game are the rakes, who are the gentleman thieves, the sharps, who are like clandestine type of thief, the codex, which is like pure knowledge base, the guys who know everything, and then the cipher who is they're familiar with glamour, the magic that's left behind by the Zoid. So I wanted to make essentially Sherlock Holmes is a master of all 4 of these things, and I built all the houses to, you saw in the game, I built all the houses to reflect the different aspects of Sherlock Holmes, and so we will make students of the Academy for Detectives, and we will choose a house. Um, Neat. Okay. So I would like to I'm gonna just start over and let's just create a new character. Let's just start from scratch. Um, so our four choices, I don't know if you saw that, was the game overview, how to play this game, create a new character, and use an existing character. So we could jump back. In the Storycaster games, there's so many games. You can create a character and you can jump back and forth. Now, this is this is the only Sherlock Holmes game that there is. And so you don't really want to take your fantasy character and jump into Sherlock Holmes. But if you check out the Discord server, I think there's like 42 different worlds right now that you can jump in. And you can just save your character and you can play it in all the games. Um, all right, so right now it's telling us the whole setting. And it's talking about our entrance into the academy. I wanted to make the beginning of character creation, essentially like, are you a cipher, gifted in manipulation of mystical glamour, a rake, a sharp, or a codex? Um, so let's just, uh, how do we create a character? Just We're in character creation now, so we can talk directly to this. In all Storycaster games, you know, just feel free if you ever have a question, just ask it. Um, so it says the start for the Sherlock Holmes Academy for Detectives. Uh, Envision your persona, choose your house, a cipher, a rake, a sharp, a codex. Determine your key attributes, like your strengths and weaknesses. By the way, in Storycaster games, there's a kind of a default homebrew. It's all based on a D20. So you'll need a D20 to play. But if you wanted to play this in D&D 5e, you wanted to play in Fate, you just tell it that what system you want to play it in, and it will play perfectly in that setting. I say perfectly, maybe I should put it in quotes. I have found some things that sometimes are a little bit wonky, but for the most part, let's just say 90%. 90% it's there. So, okay. I didn't think about this. Let's create a character. I really love ciphers because I really love glamour. Glamour is it's like this magical fuel. I thought of it in the very end of the game, and then, when I was compiling the whole thing, it all made such cool sense that the Zoids use glamour to enchant items. And so there's a bunch of enchanted items in this world, and those are called relics. So I love the cipher, so I definitely want to make a cipher. Let's see. I want to make Jim Maddox. I am a young cipher uh, who, since I'm a cipher, I want to have a relic. Let's see. What's something that I have enchanted? Who has a relic compass that will point in the direction of Zoid activity. Uh, I also have a revolver that was not made by me, but found in the American. I'm just making stuff up here, and this is what's so cool. The American Midwest, and it is a relic revolver that does not miss. All right, let's see. Jim Maddox, a young astute cipher, stepped into the hallowed halls of Sherlock Holmes' Academy for Detectives, bearing the weight of the unique destiny and tools to shape it. Inherently drawn to the arcane with a keen mind attuned for the mystical flows of glamour, Jim's journey is not one of just discovery, but for the pivotal importance in the shadowy dance with time and its would-be manipulators. So cool. The relic compass. Neat. The relic revolver. Discovered in the dust and legends of the American Midwest. So any relic, so relics can be made by, people who understand glamour and they power it. But the Zoids, who are, they're the ones that are sucked onto the brain stems of man. They can make relics. So there's all and they've been around for like 10,000 years. So there's all these items that they've touched and that they've used, that have us like maybe even cursed properties, or they have properties that helped the Zoids in some way. Um, all right, so let's just jump in here. Let's play with Jim Maddox. As dawn breaks over sprawling metropolis of London, casting the golden hue of cobblestones, Jim Maddox, armed with the relic compass and the legendary revolver that never misses. Um, So it's going to start us at this one's going to start us at the academy. And we are immediately ushered into Dr. Watson's study. And that's where we start. Mr. Maddox, just the individual we've been waiting for. Your unique talents are needed more urgently than ever. We've detected an anomaly, a ripple in the fabric of time itself, originating at the heart of the London docks, your relic compass, and indeed your exceptional abilities. Um, let's see. With a sense of purpose, Jim listens intently as Dr. Watson elaborates on the situation. Your mission, investigate the source of the temporal anomaly on the London docks, utilize the compass. Before you lies a choice. Now, it speaks differently all the time. These are all different DMs. Sometimes it'll give you choices, but the thing is you're playing this game like a role player. You always have total control of your character, so you don't have to choose any of these things. In fact, I wanted to go to class. So, um, Dr. Watson, I do not think I am ready. I would like to continue my classes. He says, okay, nods in understanding. So I went to a classroom. The class is taught by Professor Exilidoria, if you remember her. She's a master in the arts of glamour and arcane studies. So let's just, jump ahead a little bit. Uh, I want to, like show me Jim Maddox. So uh, you can always look around here and you can create images and things like that. So it's going to create, I didn't write much of a description. If I did write a lot of description in the beginning, then, I think I said I was young, but the more description you have with your character, the closer that this image will be. We're in the classroom right now. Let's do another one. So, oh, very cool. Look, it's got my compass and it's got my revolver, my Western revolver. That is badass. I love that. I love that. All right, so let's just jump around a little bit and show you how the dice system works. Um, I'm in the classroom right now. So if you ever want to like attempt to do something, with your dice, you need to say, I want to roll for. So I want to roll to impress the professor um, for my glamour skills. Uh, I want to enchant a paper airplane with gleamer and make it fly. To impress Professor Auxiliary, God, I can't say her name, with your gleamer skills. Um, Okay, please roll a 20-sided dice. I don't have a 20-sided dice. I forgot to grab one. But it's telling you what the target number is. A success is a 12. In this homebrew game that we have, essentially, it's going to give you a target number. If you get 3 over, it's considered a great success. Anywhere around the target, so 12 to 15 or 9 to 12 is considered a success. Anything below a 9 is considered failure. Uh, so let's see. Do you want me to, let's say I really succeed. I roll a 20. Let's see. Show me the paper airplane. I just love doing stuff like this. Don't mind me at all. I play with these things all the time, and I love looking around. That's when that's going to be a great segue here. You can do this as a player, but doing it as the DM is actually much more powerful. And honestly, I think that, as a DM, building your entire world as a source book, look at that. So cool. So building your whole world as a source book and then asking questions is much, much more powerful. So let's do that. Let's just kind of jump in there. So instead of playing this as a player, let's just do it. Let's just start new and let's click the game overview. I am loading the game interview or overview because I need to load the entire contents of the story in. That means that it has to connect to the Storycaster server first. If it doesn't connect to the Storycaster server, it's just making stuff up. You need to tell it what the setting is. So here we are. Um, Oh, if you want to know if it connected to the Storycaster server, you'll see this little thing up here. It says talk to the Storycaster cloud functions. Um, if it doesn't say that up there, just do it again. Make sure that that happens. Um, so it's going through. It's telling us about the classes. Very cool. But we're looking at this as a DM now, and you do not need to you don't need to play the game to really start doing some cool stuff. So, for example, show me or tell me about the classes, the character classes in this set. So we have the ciphers. They're so mysterious that they even spell cipher incorrectly, but it's not incorrect. That's the catch. The rakes, neat. The sharps, and the codex. We already knew those ones, though. What are some other cool classes here? I want more. Want more classes. This setting. We already made those. You're going to have to do some work. A time theorist at the academy. Now we're cooking with gas. A Glean crafter. Yeah, that's a cipher, people. We already knew that. Their work complements a cipher. Interesting. An envoy specializes in diplomacy and espionage. I don't know. I think that that's, reserved for the rakes, but yeah, we'll see. A warden. They watch the temporal integrity. That's pretty cool. A lore seeker. That's a codex. An echo. An echo has a unique ability to sense and interpret residual energy left by significant historical events or temporal tampering. So an echo is super interesting. Can you give me an echo class in D&D 5e? So we can make these now. They are D8 hit dice, Constitution modifiers. They are light armor. You know, you can of course change this stuff for the particular setting, but wisdom and charisma is their thing. Um, they have special class features, pass sight, residual insight. What does Path of the Guardian do? Focusing on protecting allies and preventing future tragedies. Uh, Very cool. All right, so those are, some just cool character classes that just were made from this setting. Let's get some like, what are some cool magic items from this setting? And remember, you can play Storycaster just like we did, create something completely from scratch, and do this exact same thing. Uh, Build your own world this way. Oh, it's still in D&D right now. So it's going to just do everything as D&D, but the temporal compass, so the time turner, really. Once per day, the temporal compass can guide the user towards the nearest temporal anomaly or rift within a 5 mile. Oh, it doesn't take you a time. It detects rifts in time. The echo mantle. This is a cloak tuned to an echo. A gleamer sealed scroll case. Essentially, it's a lock. That's neat. I like that. A chronos key. An ancient key. Oh, that's the actual key Sherlock Holmes has. That is neat. So they're creating multiples of that. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, it has the ability to freeze time in a 30-foot radius for a round. Okay, very powerful. The lens of true sight. These are monocles. I think those are looking glasses that we created. Um, all right, so you see that there's a bunch of magic items. That's neat. Um, I like to do I do all kinds of silly things. Like watch this. What are some good recipes in this setting? I do all kinds of stuff. I do like fashion. Like I'll get all the fashion scents. Let's look at the recipes first. Glamour infused tea. All right. It actually gives me the recipe for it. Um, a sprinkle of glamour dust. Have fun finding that. Chronicler's beef stew. You know, I'm the kind of guy who, like, when I have games and I have people over, I'll actually serve dishes from the world. So I do a full-on immersive experience. That's why I did this in the first place. If you're like me, you can have a lot of fun with this. All right, let's jump into a demo of Engine. So Engine is a Storycaster add-on that can create adventures in any setting. I'm going to show you how Engine works. I have made a little video to kind of like demo it. And so I'm just going to play that, and then I'll jump in on how to use Engine. Welcome everyone to this demo of the Storycaster engine, where I'm going to guide you on crafting exciting adventures for any role-playing game system and genre. Whether you're creating adventures in your own homebrew worlds or exploring your favorite published setting, I'll show you how to use the Storycaster engine to create amazing role-playing experiences and stories across any property. Let's unlock the potential of your gaming sessions with the art of storytelling. First off, having a plot doesn't equal railroading your players. Railroading happens when the game master controls every aspect of the game, not allowing players to make their own decisions. It's like being stuck on a predetermined train route with no opportunity to explore. This approach goes against the very essence of why people love role-playing games. Our aim is to craft games where players enjoy the freedom to make choices and influence the story, making them feel like they are the heroes on their own epic tale. Having an outline of an adventure in your back pocket gives you, the DM, the confidence to know that you can handle whatever the players throw at you. It's a beautiful thing when your group of players can move through a story in their own way. And as a DM, you want to facilitate that. But sometimes players get lost in the weeds. And when that happens, you have a clear structure that can help you grab the reins of the story and get everything right back on track. So how do we build these adventures? Here's a quick guide that we go by here at Storycaster. First, there's set the stage. Imagine setting up a scene for a play. You're showing everyone where we are, who's who, what the deal is. Let's get the players into the world of that game. This does not need to be in an actual play of the game, but just the game master explaining the situation and the important information that the players need to know. Then there's the threshold. The threshold marks the moment when the adventure truly begins and is the first scene of our play. The players have just crossed the Rubicon and they are catapulted into the heart of the adventure, facing forward with no possibility of turning back. Then there's the challenge. Here, players face problems or obstacles. It's like the hurdles in a race that make things interesting. This is the part of the adventure where the players realize that completing this task is not going to be easy, and if it was, it wouldn't be really an adventure. The next part of our story is called the complication. Complication is also known as a twist. Complication is where the players learn something new in this adventure that they did not know coming into it. And with this new piece of information, it turns up the heat on completing the whole thing. The climax is the big showdown or the most exciting part of your adventure. It's where everything comes to a head. Pull out all of the stops here. Whatever you imagine is the coolest scene in your head, use it here because this is the whole reason the players came along on this adventure in the first place. Finally, we have the resolution. The resolution is where the story concludes, neatly tying up any loose ends and wrapping up the narrative. It acts as a bridge that returns the players back to their normal lives, drinking at the bar. In this phase, players typically receive rewards for their efforts, although sometimes the greatest award is simply getting out of the adventure alive. This stage offers players a clear view of the consequences of their actions, providing a sense of closure and completion to their journey. All right, enough talking about these great stories. Let's make one of our own. Now that we see how Engine works, let's just go ahead and jump in and create a game. Let's just start totally from scratch. In this particular case, we're going to be using the game as like a DM would use it. And so all we really need to do is load the story. So I find that clicking create a new character, that is the most reliable way to make sure that you talk to the Storycaster server. I also do, game overview. It doesn't really matter. You can click all four of those buttons as long as it ends up talking the Storycaster server, then we know that we've loaded our whole world. All right, so here we go. And it's going to jump us into character creation, which we're actually not going to do. We're going to do something a little bit different here. We're going to ask it, what are some good adventures in this setting? So for your own world, let's say, you have an entire world that you built, you can ask this question directly and it's going to come up with a bunch of scenarios. Then we're going to use, well, let's just start there. Let's see if there's a good one in this setting that we like. Uh, mhm. Case of Vanishing Engineer. The Industrial Revolution disappears. The Phantom of the Opera. The grand opening of an opulent opera house is marred by the spectral appearance of the Very, very cool. Cryptic Chronicles of the British Museum. An ancient artifact recently acquired by the British Museum serves as a beacon for temporal anomalies. The Enigma of the East End Eclipses. What the? So cool. Look at that one. A series of inexplicable eclipses that plague London's East End, each occurrence marked by the disappearance of a local resident. Tracing the phenomenon to a Zoyad plot, seeks to rewrite history's most moral chapters. Damn, that's cool. Gilded Cage. Um, these are all so cool. Um, I actually really like the Phantom of the Opera. Just, I think that's kind of a cool setting. So I'm going to do that. Um, Phantoms of the Opera. So we're going to copy that. And now we're going to talk to Engine itself. So Engine is it's a Storycaster GPT that's built to create adventures. And how it works is that you're just going to have to talk to Engine first. So you have to, let's see, Storycaster uh, Engine, there we go. Um, So now we're talking the Storycaster engine, and let's paste our story in there, which is we're doing Phantoms of the Opera. This is the adventure that we're going to make. Now, what we're doing right now, how engine works is I'm going to teach it first how to tell stories, and so it's going to go through what you just saw in that last video about the 6 stages: set the stage, threshold, challenge, complication, climax, resolution. It's teaching itself what all those things are right now. It's going through like, hey, this could be cool. We're going to make this ourselves, even though you could use the adventure that it comes up with here, but I want to choose. I want to have, I want to build these adventures. So it's best that, just let it do its thing. It's trying to figure out like, oh, this could be a cool challenge. The way that we're going to do it is that we're going to build it in conjunction with our GPT. And so everything's going to make sense in a linear fashion because, if you do something, if you go through door A in the threshold, when you go to the challenge, you got to know that you went through door A. Anyway. So this next thing that we're going to do, when directors get a script, they don't actually get the whole script, right away. Scripts are too large to go through. They get something that's called a one page. A one page is a summary of what the entire script is, and I've taught this thing to take all of this information and turn it into a one page. And it also helps the GPT arrange all of our stuff. So let's type in one page. By the way, when you have the Storycaster engine, you'll know what all these commands are. I have a document that just says, what one page does, what challenge does. So here we are. This is the actual one page of the Phantoms of the Opera. The premise is the grand opening of the Lyceum Opera House is overshadowed by an unexplained spectral phenomenon, threatening to doom the establishment and spread fear throughout London. The Sherlock Holmes Academy for Detectives is called to investigate these disturbances. So it's a very Ghostbusters game. I love this. Mm. They're going to run into a collision course with the Zoid, ancient beings manipulating the fabric of time. Okay. Love it. Love it, love it. So now that it has loaded in essentially all of our setting, we're going to start building some stuff together. And so what's the first thing we do? We set the stage. This is the information that your players are going to need to know. They don't necessarily need to play this, but they're going to need to know the context in which this story takes place. And so it says, in the heart of London, under the shadowy progress of the burgeoning flow of the Industrial Revolution, lies the newly inaugurated Lyceum Opera House. Brand new opera house, gaslit alleys. Um, there's curses. Ooh. Entering students for the Academy of Detectives. Good. So if you want a really detailed like summary, you could copy this and put this into another document. This whole thing will compile in the end as an adventure. So I'm just going to leave this alone, but if you want to like have tons of notes, you can just take this as it is. But this is a great starting place. We know that the Opera House has some kind of disturbance, and the detectives have been called in. So, what's our first scene? Our first scene is the threshold. This is the first playable scene. What it's going to do right now is it's going to give us four options that it thinks would be a good starting scene, but then it's also going to give us a fifth option, which is our own option. Now, the nice thing is that we can choose one of these options. So you can see it says threshold options. Let's just read them. The curtain rises at midnight. I love those titles. The investigation begins under the cloak of midnight as the opera house, unusually abuzz with the fervor of prostitution, lies in a haunted silence. Oh, so the it's actually on the that scene, the curtains rise at midnight, is the actual curtains lift up at midnight and the players witness this. That's pretty cool. The echoes in the wardrobe. Essentially, this is where they think the ghost lies. The Phantom's crypt. And the Masquerade of Whispers, the Opera House's grand ballroom where the spectral masquerade takes place, is visible only to those sensitive to the supernatural. So that could be a good for your cipher. Uh, ghostly figures pass. That's neat. Where does this take place? This is the Opera House Grand Ballroom. So outside of the theater. I kind of am interested in this, the Masquerade of Whispers. So inside the Grand Hall, the place outside when you're gathering for the theater, there is a spectral masquerade that's happening. So ghostly figures of the past and performers dance eternally, caught in a loop of celebration and tragedy. That's pretty damn cool. So our players kind of witness this. Let's say it's like at midnight and there's this spectral, I'm going with it. I like that. Now, I was going to say that, there is a fifth path, which is we could choose our own. We also can manipulate these a little bit. We could say, I like the Masquerade of Whispers. In fact, I am going to do that. I'm going to say, four, the masquerade. Uh, but I want this to occur at midnight when the theater is closed. So it's now the masquerade whispers at night. This is our first scene. So our players are going to be witnessing this ghostly masquerade in the opera house. Cool. There's a singular presence, cloaked in shadow deeper. Okay, so that's interesting. There is a person who's watching this with intent. So like this scene is playing over and over, but there's somebody who's watching the scene to learn something from it. I like that a lot. Super interesting. The puzzle of the shadowy figure. Okay, that's cool. So that's our threshold scene. Our first scene is the players, they're witnessing this ghostly masquerade, but then they notice that there's someone else who's watching the ghostly masquerade. I assume there's going to be some kind of chase or something. Let's see what it thinks. Let's go to the challenge. Now that we know that there is a watcher among this who's also watching this masquerade. So it says, okay, you chose the masquerade of at midnight. We need to go into then see how it says the next logical step. So it's like, all right, this is the next step from what you chose. It's the enigmatic libretto. Stemming from the Masquerade's revelations, a forgotten opera libretto mentioned by a spectral dancer. Ooh. So there is a play. The thing is this is a new theater, so I don't like the idea that there was, something that was before it. So let's keep going. The spectral performance, encouraged by the masquerade's ethereal encounters, witnessing a ghostly reenactment. Duel of Shadows. Yeah, I like the Duel of Shadows right there. So this is where, so there's a watcher. I want this to be a Zoid agent who's watching the ghostly scene. In fact, I think that they're using a relic to replay this ghostly scene. And there's not ghosts at all. So they're kind of like playing like a, yeah, they have like a lantern that's shining. Um, yeah, that they're replaying images of the past that have happened in the theater. And so they're watching the grand opening. And since this is all about time distortions, I think what they're doing is that so the first night of the play, let's say every or the show, it is a masquerade. And so they find out the players are like, hey, this isn't a ghostly performance. This is an actual like recording of the first night's opening, and it's being played by this relic lantern that shoots all of these imagery onto the walls. And there's a Zoid agent who's watching it. I really like that. So let's do, this is going to be a bit, we're going to do the Duel of Shadows. That was number 4. I want them to chase that guy, but I also want them to be like, holy cow, look at this lantern. Duel of Shadows. So let's say I want this to be 4, the Duel of Shadows. Add the relic lantern that the Zoid agent is using to project the ghostly masquerade and learn from the past. Neat. I like the relic lantern. So it's like, all right. Within the secret confines known as the mirror room, the Zoid agent. So this leads into essentially there is a like a dressing room. I like the idea that this is like part of the stage. We have chased the Zoid agent out into the stage. We've discovered that they're using the relic lantern. This artifact, once used as a tool of enlightenment and understanding, is corrupted by the Zoid's malevolent intent. Um, it's projecting images of the past. Engagement fun. The psychological and strategic depth of this challenge set in a visually mesmerizing mirror room. Yeah, that is kind of cool that the Zoid runs to a mirror room to really lose the players. We'll have to say that that's part of the performance, like, and that's so they're backstage in the mirror room, and so this is the race in the backstage. That's cool. Let's go into the complication. So after we are backstage in the labyrinth of mirrors, our detectives face a pivotal moment in their quest. The relic lantern, now neutralized and in their possession, serves as a stark reminder. So they have the relic, or the lantern. Um, this is kind of neat. There's something about the past that has had to have happened. The fragmented relic, the next logical step. Upon securing the relic lantern, it unexpectedly fractures, scattering pieces imbued with glamour across the opera house. Each fragment holds a shard of history, keys to unlocking the relic's full potential. Interesting. So the relic is booby trapped and it blows apart. Um, if you choose to accept your mission, essentially, like it's the end of that. That's neat. That, that could be kind of cool. Like this Zoid agent is watching to see. Oh yeah, yeah. This Zoid agent has this lantern that was given to him. It's projecting an image of the future. And the Zoid agent is watching it to see essentially what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to alter the future. That is really cool. Ah, that lantern. So the lantern is essentially a message of like, this is what you're supposed to do. And so in the complication, I think they're going to learn from watching the relic that that the Zoyas are going to target a person. That is great. So let's choose our own. So let's just go chop 5. Um, learning, learning a secret from the relic lantern. The lantern is used to show a future and select a target for the Zoid agent. So the agent was putting the lantern there, and it's like, this is what's going to happen in this place in the future. And they're trying to see who should we take out? Like, who should the target be? Um, let's just ask. Give me a good person for a target of the Zoid agent in the future. So this is a complete, we just made our own complication, which is totally fine. Learning a secret from the relic, the future's target. In the intricate dance of shadows and whispers in a duel of shadows, the detectives, they are watching the relic lantern. They learn that it's the future. So Professor Eleanor Hargreaves is going to be at she is a professor she's a professor at the school. That is so cool. She's a archaeology, a discipline. Oh, whoa. So Professor Hargreaves is about to, in the future, will uncover something about the Zoids. And so they're trying to remove Professor Hargreaves. I love this. I love it, love it, love it. That is awesome. Okay, let's go into the climax. So I'm sure they're going to find out that, oh, that show is tonight and Professor Hargreaves is there. So let's see if it jumps to that conclusion. I think it will. They know that Professor Hargreaves is in trouble tonight at this show. They need to stop her. Yep. It says the stand at Hargreaves' lab. That's interesting. I don't know if I like going. I like everything kind of in this cool new opera house. Utilizing. Oh, whoa. These guys go back in time through an unstable. Whoa, that's a bit much. The siege at the opera house. I think that the climax has to take place at the masquerade ball, which is happening at the opera house tonight. And so they were actually looking at the future. They were not looking at the past. Um, there is a grand, yeah, that is so cool. There's a big masquerade ball. Let's just add this. Um, at the grand opening of the opera house is a masquerade ball. That is the evening that the players learn that Professor Hargreaves is a target at the ball. The climax, the players must save Hargreave from the Zoid agent or agents at the ball. So the climactic scene is saving Professor Hargreaves at the masquerade ball. Uh, Setting is the grand opening. And then, of course, last, we're going to go into the resolution. Um, this is going to be an actual fight between a Zoid agent and and saving Professor Hargreaves for something that she's going to do in the future. So cool. Climactic moments in the unveiling. The lantern exposes. Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. So what's saying is like at the climactic moment, the players may use the lantern and actually see how this is going to unfold and maybe learn something from where the Zoid is. That's so cool. Um, this thing is like projecting a few minutes in the future because it's the lantern and it's just replaying this scene over and over of the masquerade. And they thought at first it was ghosts of the past. It's not. It's this evening that was in the future. Yeah, I love that. Um, okay, so there's a fight in the opera house. Great. Let's go to the resolution. What happens in the end of this? Do we catch the Zoid agent? Who knows? Gonna give us four choices. The alliance forged in time. In the aftermath of the ball, the detectives and Professor Hargreaves. That's kind of cool. Essentially, the players make a friend, which is Professor Hargreaves, which I like a lot. This could be a great introduction of a mentor character. The Beacon of Hope at the heart of the Opera House, now restored, is the rightful place. The Guardian's Vigil. I think I'm just going to go with that mentor because I love that so much. The Path Forward unveiled back at the Academy. They study the Relic Lantern. I like that the Relic Lantern is just playing this one scene, and now that that it's already happened, it's kind of useless. Um, and I want to give them something that they can like see into the future with. So let's do this. I want number one, the Alliance. I want Professor to be a new ally. The players, the end. So that's our adventure. It starts with the new opening of the opera. There is the opera manager is like, hey, there's ghosts in here. Um, and the players investigate. At first, they're like, "Oh my God, there really are ghosts." They see projections of a masquerade. They discover that there is someone who is actually watching this. And when that person is discovered, they make a run for it. They run through backstage. There's a kind of a fight. The Zoid agent escapes in the mirrors in the backstage, but the lantern's left behind. They investigate the lantern. They realize it's not playing the past, it's playing the future. And the future is tonight, and the target is Professor Hargraves. The climax is the opening night at the masquerade. Players are probably in masquerade as well, and they're looking for that agent who is an assassin for Hargraves. They wait for the last moment, they save Hargraves. Maybe they even use the lantern at the last moment to kind of see where the Zoid agent is. Maybe they defeat the agent. Maybe the agent escapes. I don't know. We'll see, how that plays out. Um, and then the professor is now becomes an ally and helps the players. The end. Awesome. Great adventure. I love that. Let's compile that. I love that. So compile the adventure. It's going to build the whole thing, set the stage, everything that we need as a DM. But wait, there's more. We want art for this. So let's wait until it's done. Wasn't this cool? It just gave us a whole, like, through that process, we just came up with an awesome story that would be really fun to play, I think. I love masquerade balls, and in this setting, that's cool. London awakes, and I'm going to turn this into an adventure. So, oh, by the way, like I could have published this. This is just a write-up. I could have published this for any setting. Like if we wanted to do it for Fate or D&D, that we could have published that way. Um, let's create. Let's just do this. I want images for each of these 6 scenes. So I'm going to create an image that represents that stage, threshold, challenge. So if you were playing your game in, Owlbear or Roll20 or something like that, you can have full art to all of these. After that, we're going to make maps, and then we're going to make tokens for it as well. So this is the opening. This is that's the Lyceum Opera House. I'll probably fast forward so that you don't have to wait see it all create. I'll just zoom to the front. Okay, so it's done. Those were awesome. Let's take a look at them. So I already talked about the opening. This is the set the stage. We know that it's the Lyceum Opera House. This is the threshold where there's the ghostly masquerade that's going on. It's the projection from the relic lantern. This is the escape of the Zoid agent. And he runs through this is like the backstage of the mirror. And so it's like a battle of mirror images, which I think is cool. This is the challenge or excuse me, this is the complication, the twist, where the players learn that it's actually the relic was not playing the past, it's playing the future. That's a cool twist. And the target is Professor Hargraves, and the agent is trying to assassinate Hargraves. This is the climax, which is the actual masquerade. at the opening of the theater, and the players are there. There's going to be some kind of fight, and then lastly, we have the resolution where they make friends with Professor Hargrave, and she shows them like some device that she's working on or something. Maybe she's the one who actually makes the relic lantern, which could be super cool. It's up to you, however you want to play it. But let's make some maps for this. So instead of talking to the Storycaster engine, we're going to talk to Storycaster Map Maker and say, create maps for this game. It's going to create all of our overhead maps for all of our scenes. And if you were, like I said, if you're using Roll20 or Owlbear or whatever, then maps would be useful. It's going to go through as a description for all of our maps. Okay, so now it created all of the maps for this, and these aren't perfect. If you want something to be created without text, you can actually say create that again without text. I like my maps that don't have any writing on them, especially when they have weird words like entrit. But here is the theater. This is the outside. This is the inside scene. This is the mirror scene. I really like that the show that they're doing is some kind of like mirror Cirque du Soleil show. So they're actually running around on the set of the stage, which I think is cool. This is the scene when they discover the lantern, like where it's projecting from. This is the climax at the in the ballroom. And this is the laboratory. You probably don't need the laboratory scene, but yeah, you got it. Anyway, so let's stop talking to MacMaker and let's make some tokens. So all we need to do is say tokens. This is a Storycaster token maker and make tokens this. Okay, so here we are. Here is the relic lantern. Masquerade guests, spelling is very strange. The Zoid agent and Professor Hargreaves. So if you don't like the tokens, you can regenerate them, but just wanted to show that, these are all the tokens that we need for this game, and we are ready to go. All right, well, thank you for joining us or joining me. I guess we're not doing it in a group today, but I'm glad that you could see how powerful this is and what a tool it is for if you're a world builder, you can build your whole world and then create an infinite amount of games from it, monsters from it, classes, NPCs, anything. So come by our Discord and check it out if you want to build one yourself. All right, I'm going to build this as as an actual adventure, and I'll also build a game trailer for it. See you soon.